Namaste, hero.
Namaste.
What are the three Indian myths that people usually think it's right?
So I think the first one is the genetic myth. So I can't get in shape because of my genetics. I've got belly fat all around here.
But what about the person who wants to grow muscles?
So we know from the research that you need a specific amount of protein per day to build muscle tissue.
What do you think about Indian sweets?
In terms of my personal preference, I don't like them. I think they're just too sweet. I'm more of a cheesecake type of guy.
What about Indians who are turning from vegetarians to vegans?
It's a tough one. If they want to stay eating like traditional Indian food, already a unique small category of protein and food sources that you can have.
So what's one thing that you would pick from Indians and one thing that you would deny from Indians? Namaste, hero.
Namaste.
You are the hero of this podcast. How do you feel?
It's nice to be a hero sometimes.
Amazing. You are actually the hero of a lot of Indian people out there. Lot of Indians, Bangladesh, and the whole South Indian or South Asian community loves you for your content, and same here. So I'm so excited and happy to have you here today. Tell us more about you, where you're from, and your background.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I got like two lives: before South Asian food and then after South Asian food. So originally I'm from Cheshire in the UK. I trained as a physiotherapist and an injury specialist because I had a knee issue when I was very, very young, to the point where 3 years ago I had a knee replacement, so I have metal knee. So I always wanted to be a physiotherapist. My mum was a nurse, so I always wanted to help people. My dad was a teacher, so I got that caring gene. Went to university, loved it, but I needed to afford to stay in London. So I became a personal trainer just because that's the only job I could get, a personal trainer or an injury specialist. And those injury specialists, you worked at rugby teams or football, which were only Tuesday and Thursday nights. So you weren't getting a full-time job out of it. So I'm like, right, I can either work in Tesco, Starbucks, or I can go to a personal trainer. So I became a personal trainer, or I had the qualification anyway with my degree. And then I just started training people and fell in love with the whole process. Changing people's bodies, changing people's minds, so much that I actually didn't do any more injury stuff after that. I just focused on changing people's bodies. So I'm a type of person who's got ADHD, so I go into something 100%. I found my purpose. Before that, C student, played Xbox way too much, played PlayStation, FIFA. I'm very good at FIFA, and I was really good at doing nothing. And then I found this personal training stuff, and I just went all the way in.
Wow.
So after that, then I started doing that, and that's when I became London's best personal trainer. I worked for a company in central London that kind of put me on the map effectively as that award, which was awesome. And that's when the South Asian kind of tweet came in after that. My friend at the time was making an online business before COVID. We all got sick of the gym floor, so he was the first person to go, I'm going to do this online. I'm going to train people in the US, I'm going to train people in Australia, but I'm going to do it from my mum and dad's bedroom in North Harrow. So he started this business, but he was Gujarati. So he went to a wedding one day, got 10 clients.
Oh, wow.
Went to another wedding, with those 10 clients' results, lost 10 kilos, lost 20 kilos. They went to the next wedding, 50 clients, 100 clients, boom. And then before you know it, I get a phone call saying, hey, like, I need some help.
Wow.
I know you don't know anything about like Gujaratis. And I was like, what's that? Who are they? Like, is that a chocolate bar? I'm not sure. And then it started from Boxing Day 2018. I got my first set of clients, and then the exposure began. And that's when it became, I guess I had to learn very quickly that it doesn't matter what I learned as London's best personal trainer, this was a whole new field. Wow. So that's where I came into this.
Wow, this is super amazing and fascinating. No wonder how wedding are this networking sessions these days.
Yeah.
I just had my brother's wedding, and it just seemed like it's just like a networking thing where people come in and they're like, hey, what's up? It's been long. Yeah. What are you doing? Okay, let's do business together.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So, what can I extract from you before you extract from me? Like, should we get a drink together and can we do something before this is over? Yeah.
Exactly. So that's super good, and I'm super glad that happened with you. And going on to your journey, I really want to ask you, what made you feel to make a shift? Because you said that you were into Xbox and everything, right? Yeah. So because everyone has something that changes them. What do you think was one thing that changed you?
That's good. I think it was my knee issue originally. Okay. So I guess I always got that saying where the worst thing in your life is probably you can make the best thing in your life. Or like the worst things always become the best things if you learn the lessons from the worst things. Not all the worst things that you can do everything about, but in my case, the nature of taking something seriously more than anything else. So I started looking at injuries, started studying the body, started understanding about exercise and training. Was that my first introduction, because I couldn't do football, I couldn't do rugby, I would watch people play sport and get emotionally, like hurt and upset. So all I could do was study it and do upper body stuff. And therefore that's when I started learning. So that was my biggest change. And I think that moment when I first took someone's personal training session, and then you could see that you're taking them out of their comfort zone, but by the end of the session, they've now expect more of themselves because they've tested themselves. And I think that mental shift translates to business, it translates to work, it translates to overcoming limited beliefs, to relationships. It's like, you've got the bar here, but your potential is here. My job is to take you in the middle, go from here to somewhere up here if you want to go there. So I just love that process of change, because change is hard. But if I can make it easier to some degree, or more fun, or more humorous, or like more tactical, or easier, then I'll do that. So that's.
So how do you make it easier? Through humor? Like, what's your USP?
My USP is like, make it so easy that it looks silly not to do. That's like, make it so easy. So that hence why, if you look at the nutritional strategies that we utilize with our clients now, that's why we have traditional food in the plans. That's why we teach people how to have, like, the chevro, the bell, the samosas, like everything, the pani puri, whatever you name the food, we can put it in. Because if I can make it so easy that you don't overconsume food, if you don't increase your obesity, then I'm going to have you in the opposite way. I'm going to get you more healthy, I'm going to get you fitter, because it's so easy not to do. It's like if there was a meal there in front of you, you're going to eat that one as opposed to ordering a McDonald's. So it's about me finding systems, strategies, tactics, meal plans, meal structures, working with maids, working with personal assistants, so that meal in front of you is the one that you eat. You don't get the one that's from McDonald's.
Wow, that's crazy. When it comes from a non-Indian, I'm very surprised, and I'm like wondering, how did you make, and how long did you take to make something like this?
It's been about 7 years in the making.
Wow.
So January 2018, I got my first food pictures, and I didn't understand what I was seeing. So the first time I'd ever seen saag paneer, right? So I was like, what is this? It's green, it's white. I'm like asking my Indian friends about, dude, what is this? Like, do you guys eat this? Like, what's going on? and then basically I did three things. I got a bunch of clients, and then I went to see them. So I spent time with them. So I went to their house, seen their mannerisms, seen bar, ordering the dinner table, making the roti at the kitchen, and then seeing how the culture of different families, whether it's Tamil, Gujarati, Sikh, and obviously the whiskey comes out when it's Punjabi, and then you see all these different nuances.
Yeah.
And then you go and spend time with people, and you understand what makes them tick, why it's so hard to say no in front of your auntie, why those comments really cut deep when someone says something at a wedding about you looking skinny or looking overweight, why you have to kind of play the game sometimes at home with who's cooking and what they're cooking, which you don't get if you're just reading the manual, and there's no manual on this shit. Oh. So that was like one introduction. Two is like just going and spending time eating the food. So from that January onwards, we did, me and my friend Kunal, who runs a very similar business to this as well. He's got a massive business, it affects loads of people in America. He works with thousands of clients. He's amazing. Me and him went to India together. He's the guy, he's Tanzanian. He'd never been to India until like he was like 23, and we went together. Wow. So we did Mumbai, we did Delhi, we did Goa, and then we did all the usual stuff that we were there, read Shantaram as we went through that process. And just made a point of not making sure I didn't know not the answers to a question. So I just never wanted to be like either relying on Google or relying on like random information. I wanted to be like, hey, that food tastes amazing. This is what I would do around it. Or hey, this is what's in this food. This is what I would do to change it. If mum wants to make a different recipe, I can go, hey, tweak this and tweak that. Oh, yeah. So it comes from not wanting to look stupid, but at the same time, it indifferently helps, because there's a lot of brown coaches that don't even do this too, but I think that's what makes my USP, is that I have like a 360 view. Yeah. So
that's interesting. And what do you say, what are the 3 Indian myths that people usually think it's right?
So I think the first one is the genetic myth. So I can't get in shape because of my genetics. Like I've got belly fat all around here, it's never gonna go. Well, it does go, it's just very hard to lose weight. It's hard to lose that area. 2 is like that you can't get enough protein as a vegetarian.
Yes.
You just have to do it more specifically. And I think any myth, it just needs to be answered with, plus you just need to be more accurate and more specific than what you're currently doing. So whether it's protein intake or you want to increase your bone density, because most South Asian women have lower bone density, even guys have lower bone density. Muscle mass is lower for most people when they start in their younger ages. These factors can put you at a disadvantage until you start training, until you start looking at your nutrition. But it doesn't mean you've got a long-term disadvantage. It just means that you just have to work a little bit harder to make it up. And that's something that's totally in your control. And I love, hence why the business is called Autonomy, is complete control, because I can control the outcome. So once people know that you can change it, you can do something about it.
That's amazing. And what do you want to tell those Indian dads and mothers who feed their children like hell?
Yeah, I think everyone asks me the same thing. They ask me, what should my children eat? So I get it from the parents.
Okay.
Or why are my kids overweight? Or like, why am I? And I'm like, if you're the one feeding them, so they've got your habits. So if you want to change somebody else, you have to change yourself first. So you have to become the proof. Like, I used to have 9 friends who would go to the club on a Friday. I was the 10th one. I went with them. Now I've got 9 friends that are all personal trainers and into nutrition and they care. We go to a coffee shop on a Saturday morning. That's the difference, that the environment is key. But we changed ourselves. Each of us have our own journey. We used to all be that. But we all used to be in the bar on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday. But now we do different things because we changed ourselves. So the overfeeders will always overfeed because that's what happened to them and happened before them. And I think we're in the generation now where anyone between the ages of now, probably between the ages of 39 and 29, there is a massive shift between, like, I guess, the cultural dynamics. Obviously social media becomes a lot more, and the prevalence of what's available in maybe the Western world versus obviously in India, for example, or the Desi population. It looks like those guys, and I say we, but like these guys are the game changers. They're the ones that are stopping their families from having type 2 diabetes in the future because they're fed up with their grandparents popping pills, metformin, and going, I'm not going to end up like them. And I don't think many other generations beforehand have thought that way. Whether it's the vanity of like trying to get in shape, whether it's trying to find a good partner, whether it's the fertility issues that are going on right now with IVF and the rates of pregnancies decreasing, whatever the intricacies are of making change, people are standing and taking note and seeing that generation above and going, I'm not being like them, and that's the step. So anyway, that's a ramble, but that's what's happening right now. I see with the generational, especially out here in Dubai and in the UK and East Coast, West Coast America, is like there's a change.
Nice. That's super interesting to know. Even like for me, some habits that I've changed are crazy. I sleep by 9, get up by 5. Yeah. I eat super clean. And this was not the case anymore, but like now everything has changed because I want to see the best version of myself, so I can, do mentally very well, physically very well. So that's a very interesting. And apart from that, let's talk about the foods, right? Like being a vegetarian, it's very tough. What most of the people say, but I think it's kind of easy if protein is hunted very right. So can you highlight for vegetarians, what are the proteins that they should hunt on?
Yeah, so I think just the global statement when it looks at veggie Indians, let's say veggie Indians, who are looking for like a meal at a restaurant or they're eating out, the big statement is you're going to have to work harder, and you're probably not going to like some of the sources that you have to choose. But if you want to hit your protein, that's the concept. Like we all love pizza, we always like choosing a pasta dish. But if your goal is to hit the protein because that is beneficial, you probably won't be having those options. So sometimes it feels like a killjoy being a vegetarian and trying to hit the protein, but it's just the concept of like that's a choice you made or for your family made or whichever, whoever made it, and some of the consequences are that you have to make additional changes. So flipping back to that, that's the big thing, is that you can change what you can change. So at home, there's 2 types. You've got the stuff that has what we call, if you're trying to build muscle, and then stuff that is just going to keep you healthy. So most people think protein is like this thing where every single one is made equal. So like rajman, chana, the dairies, the yogurts, the cottage cheese, the paneers, everyone sees them as protein. But if you want to build muscle, you need to have specific ones which have what we call leucine in. So leucine is like an amino acid, which is protein is here. Inside the middle of the protein, there's like 9 of these things, or more than 9, but 9 essential ones. And inside that, there's one of them called leucine, and that's the switch for muscle growth. Okay. So that's why you see some Indians hit their protein, but they don't grow muscle, because they don't have specific ones. If you just don't care about muscle and you just care about health, you can have the rajmas, the chanas, the dals, any of those variations, plus the yogurts, the cottage cheeses, the paneers, the soy-based stuff, the mock-based stuff. They're all really, really good. But in order of importance, I would definitely say dairy is number one, soy is number two, like the tofu, seitans, tempehs. And then after that, that's when you're looking at the dals, the rajmas, chanas. They have protein in, but they've like 50% carb, 50% protein. Mm-hmm. But most people, if we're looking at sustainability, which is kind of my expertise, is like, how do I get you to do something for 20 years? If most people have been built up and made on chana, rajma, and like dals, like the classic dish of like dal, sabzi, roti, some yogurt on the side, whatever, and some pickle. If that's what you want to continue doing for the next 20 years, that's cool. But we just need to change the portion of your dal and then maybe some other meals in the rest of your day to make up for it. Because it's not about you having equal across the day. You could have loads of protein in the morning and then roti and nothing in the evening if you wanted to. So the importance is the dairy, the soy, and the tempeh ones. But what we teach our clients is they can either get super hyper specific, so like with grams and get really measured, or they can just make sure there's 4 servings of protein across the day and you'll be kind of okay. Like no one's gonna die, no babies, no kittens, you're gonna be kind of okay. You're not gonna be massive, you're not gonna build muscle, you probably will need to change some things in the future, but right now if you wanted to lose some weight, be healthier.
So I got your answer for if a person wants to be healthier and fit, but what about the person who wants to grow muscles?
Yeah. So that's where the specificity and accuracy comes in. So we know from the research that you need a specific amount of protein per day to build muscle tissue. So your body weight in pounds, the easiest one to go for is 2 times your body weight in pounds. Oh, sorry, one times your body weight in pounds, 2 times in kilo. So like for my body weight, that'd be 168 pounds. Grams. 168 pounds into grams is 168 grams. My math is terrible. So then every single day I would need to endeavor to hit that number with my food that I choose. So if you want muscle building, you can't just randomly eat foods and hope you get there. You have to be quite systematic. So that's where meal planning across a week comes in really important. Yeah. You don't need to track every day. You don't need to be like meal prepping or like do your 7 days worth of food. You just need to know what you're going to have so you can predict your numbers. So I will make, like, especially because I've got a living maid, and Bharti, she's from Hyderabad, so we get all the good stuff, like Hyderabad biryani. It's like, so I'll say, hey, this is what we're having for the week ahead. I want you to make these particular portions on the day. So I know that when she makes that food, I've hit my numbers. And like most people just need a meal plan at the beginning of the week to see what they need to do across the week. And then they can be more accurate with their protein.
Interesting. So you are saying if I want to grow muscles, I need to have very good amount of protein. Yeah. Then only I can do that.
Yeah, specific amount. Yeah.
Specific amount.
Yeah.
Yeah. So particularly for me, if I'm thinking I can have paneer, soya, dal, chana, chole, all these kind of food will make, and then I need to basically have more than 120 grams, I believe.
Yeah, well, you're 120 grams, you'll be on 120 pounds, right? So yeah. So what you would do, let's say you would add maybe some protein powder in there because it's easy with low calorie, because you don't want to get too fat at the same time. So like if you wanted to get 30 grams of paneer, especially if it's the full fat paneer, which tastes the best, it's like that might be like 400 calories. But then a protein shake with 30 grams is 120 calories. So you spend your calories wisely across the day too. So and it's massive in America. I don't know why, but American Indians got on the trend of like protein, right? So then what they do is they just have as much protein as they can, but they forget the calories. So they end up getting fatter and more muscled. But then they're like, oh, I've got now more fat, and it's like, okay, well, we need to get that off. So they forget that calories are really important as the first thing, protein is the second. So yeah, across your day, the yogurts, the soys, the protein powders, like you could have I call it like one traditional meal a day. So you could have the chole, the rajma and chanas in the evening with the family, for example, which obviously is going to be made primarily by someone else if you're living in a family home. And then the other meals, that's where you have the more specifics of the protein powders, the yogurts, the seitan, the paneer, the tofu, where you can get more specific when family are not around. And then basically you just load your 120 grams, you do 100 over 3 meals, so breakfast, lunch, maybe a snack somewhere, protein shake, banana, whatever it is. And then that meal in the evening, chole bhatura, whatever it is with the family, bang, eat that with the family, don't have second portions, and then at least in your other meals you've had your protein intake. So it doesn't need to be that serious. It just needs to be at some point in the day, be specific, and at some point in the day, you can get away with a bit of chole bhatura and chana, you know.
Yeah.
So
that's so amazing. You give out a very nice balance, you know. I think that's very much important, because these days people are like scared that if I eat this one time ever as well, I'm gonna get fat, or like I'm not hitting off my goals. But that's very interesting thing that you highlighted upon. So that's with the protein. What about biryani? So let's say when it comes to biryani, people, you know, like South Indians especially, they have a lot of rice in their food. So what do you think, is that amount of rice really good or not?
Yeah, so it's never the biryani's fault. It's always the person with the either the roti or the spoon, you know. Because biryani is a very good learning point for most people, because biryani is not normally a day-to-day meal for some. It's a special occasion, right? For some people have every day, and that's amazing. But like for example, but I asked Bharti to make it on special occasions, and it might take her 3 hours to make a Hyderabad biryani. Insane. That's how she got the job, because I was like, hey, make me your favorite meal, and she said, okay, sir, I will. And then she came back, and she like 3 hours later, there's a biryani the size of that whole kitchen. I'm like, the kitchen's destroyed, but she's made this amazing meal. I'm like, you can stay. That's your room. There you go. 2 years later, you know, whatever it is. So for most, it's more of like a celebration meal. Now, this shows, I guess, maybe one of the lacking areas within the community is what happens when excitement and food come together. Because normally that's the bottleneck for most people's willpower, discipline, where it all comes unstuck. So biryani is never the problem. It's more of the case of when you get excited to have biryani because you haven't had it in a while, that's when the tendency to have 2 servings, 3 servings, there's a bit left over. So one of your aunties will say, or your mum will say, hey, finish this off. You feel you can't say that. So now you've had a meal that on the outskirts looking in is chicken or mutton and rice. That's what I had for lunch. I had chicken and rice, but in the different quantities that maybe someone else had. So the ingredients on most Indian food, and this is one of the biggest things, the South Asian food is fantastic. It's just in the quantities in which you have them that determine whether it's positive or negative for your overall health and goals. So like 4 servings of biryani, even though it's chicken and rice, is still going to be a lot more food than you really need. So I like biryani, I like all the foods, but I just know now the serving sizes I can get away with without, you know, being, you know, chunky. So we never blame biryani. Biryani is the god, you know. So, but that happens a lot. The excitement with food, because food is like the number one priority that brings people together, and that's the upbringing of food. You look forward to whatever have Diwali. This is coming out. The gulab jamun, the jalebis are coming. Oh my god, I can't wait to have them. And then before you know it, because they're only there for a moment, once a month or once every year, there's that. I need to get the most out of it. You know, it's like when you go on holiday, that expensive holiday, and you have the all-inclusive mentality. I'm having 6 breakfast options because I want to have it. You know, like even one of our coaches is he's Syrian, but I think the Arab and South Asian community are very alike in some ways with the culture around food at the dinner table. So we gave him like a hotel break to say thank you, and he said like, I'm at breakfast, I'm so stuffed from dinner last night, but I'm still at breakfast getting my money's worth. And I'm like, you know, like I pay for it. so like that's, I get those the moments that really highlight and typify maybe the culture around food. I never had that when I was younger. Like it was fish and chips on a Friday, roast dinner on a Sunday, biscuits in the cupboard if you want them. There was never a have seconds, have this, have that. Never, no excitement outside of a Friday takeaway. It's not like the food was part of the thing, not everything. So.
Exactly. So one of my friends, Max, he's from Germany. He was at my brother's wedding last month. It was crazy. He was literally crying out of happiness that you people, you're treating me as a family. You're feeding me until the mouth. And he has eaten his meal, and then my dad comes and feeds him. And then he's like, okay, now. So I think that is great, but I think once in a while is good. And I think the next day, if you work out, or the same day, you know, you balance it out, I think it totally makes sense.
100%. There's a saying that we use which is called the give and the take. And I think people, especially like obviously working with the Gujarati community at the beginning and what they're known for in terms of saving their money, is like when I used to work with those guys primarily, I would always use this like kind of saying, because it's a bit of tongue in cheek. So the humor, it's like, I know you guys like to save money, so let me talk in cash. It's like, for every pound that you put over here, you have to put a pound here. And that's the same with calories. it's the same as putting too much money on your Amex or your business card or the Emirates MBD card out here. If you put too much on it, you go into overdraw and you're paying interest.
Makes sense.
So if you have that big wedding and you have those extra stuff, you just have to take a bird's eye view and look over a 30-day period, a 7-day period, a 14-day period. Where are you going to cut back to have those moments? Like I know for me, my birthday's in a week's time. We're going out for like a beach day. That's going to be, I'm dieting right now, but that day, there's 4 days before that where I'm going to be making adjustments so that my birthday can eat the way I want to eat. And that'll be once in a while, but most people just don't have any fear of consequences. And that's one of the things we teach our clients is like, everything has a consequence. And it's not that the consequences are bad, it's just that if you choose it, you've got to follow through on the other side of the coin. You can't have you can't have your cake and eat it all of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is great. It comes out to the point where a lot of people have this information.
Yeah.
Like lots of social media, internet, and of course you and me.
Yeah.
But then I think very less people take it and use it in their life.
Yeah.
I think that's the game-changing point, right? Like, and so what do you think in your term when you are with a client, you need to be with them in some few specific hours, or do you check up on them? How, you try to manage that?
Yeah, so I guess over the years I've tried everything from calling people to ringing them to being with them every day to giving people space to seeing them once a week, whatever it was. Right now I prefer to use like a day-to-day method. So our coaches, we've got like 8 coaches and they've worked with like over 500 people right now, and they speak to their clients every single day, Monday to Friday.
Wow.
So Monday to Friday, we're like, hey, put the cookies down, what's happening, how are you getting on, how are you feeling, have you followed the stuff, make adjustments. And then weekends we give them a bit of free rein, and plus the coaches need some time off. But the way that we get implementation is that you add desire, which should be self-desire, and then you add accountability externally from either an investment financially, because that makes people work harder, but also someone else, someone that you respect, someone that has been there and done that the same way that you would like to get your results and has that experience, and you add it into the mix so that there's some self-drive, there's some external accountability, and there's like a mutual goal that they're working towards. I think once you add that, you're in the best possible position to succeed, providing what those sides don't break, or there's like, I guess, you change the goals halfway through. But like that really does make a difference. And I feel most people nowadays, because social media is so social and it's very much like everyone's so insular, having someone in your corner daily is like a pat on the back to be like, you can do this. Whereas we've done it before many years ago where it was just an email once a week. That's how we coached. Hey, for the next week I need you to do this, this and this and this. But most people mess up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. No support, by the time habits going in swings, but habits are based, and changing habits is based on how fast can you get to a course correction. So like if I want to change your habit around picking your toenails, for example, or biting your fingers, I don't wait a week and say, hey, you should probably stop doing that. The way my mum taught me is that if I did this, she'd slap my hand,
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I learned very quickly.
Yes.
Put my finger away from my mouth, and I think habit course correction is like something where it has to happen in the moment, because that's the best way we all learn. We all learn is like, we did something wrong, we need to change it straight away. The longer the gap is, the more issues there are. So I feel like that's why daily stuff, or being with someone virtually daily, allows for that course correction quickly.
Exactly. What do you think about Indian sweets?
In terms of my personal preference, I don't like them. I think they're just too sweet. I'm more of a cheesecake type of guy. Okay. So, I mean, if I'm having any, I'd rather go savory, if I'm honest. Like my kind of my favorite is chevro and gatia. Like chevro and gatia are my best. Like
what's that again?
Gatia.
Gatia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chevro's like and then they're my favorites. But from a sweet perspective, they're just, if you wanted the most amount of calories in the shortest amount of time, and that was like the task. If there was
laddus.
Laddus, gulab jamuns. If you task somebody to put the most amount of calories in the shortest square inch, they win. They're like one bite, like one gulab jamun is 150 calories. That's the same as a Mars bar. One of them, this big, Mars bar. The same.
Why do you think even these guys created something like that in the first case?
Because that's a good question. We should ask the historian for that. My thought process is that the availability of, like, if you look at the ingredients that are in these things, they're just almost the cheapest and the most available things that are available.
Okay, makes sense.
So when then you mix these 3-4 ingredients together, you get something that's super high energy. Because there's a lot of foods that have been made within the community that were made more for people, well, obviously on low budgets, and that would have to last a long time, but also for people that were on the doing lots of laborious work. So they'd come home after burning thousands of calories, and they couldn't spend loads of money on calories. So then there would be this high dense food that would suffice the men that would go away and do the work. So it's very efficient, obviously, for the culture and the limited resources that they had. They created some very efficient ways of getting your calories in. We don't burn them the same way that those guys did back in the day.
No way.
Yeah, no way.
No
No
way.
way.
Oh my God. So that's crazy. And what about, I wanted to ask you a question. Do you eat eggs?
Yes.
And how many eggs?
So I think for me every single day I do like 3 to 4 with egg whites. So I do 3 proper ones and egg yolk. Depends on what phase I'm dieting, muscle building. But I guess probably the question that you're asking is like, should we eat eggs on a consistent basis and should we have them quite often? Like, you've got in the 80s there was this thing around fat is bad. So every 10 years a new stuff gets demonized. So 80s it was fat, 90s it was like, or 90s it was fat, or 200s it was carbs. 2010 to 2020 has been like, I don't know, something else like carnivore diet or something like that, or longevity is the new thing. Every 10 years there's this a new thing, and every time the 10-year finishes, the thing that was beforehand gets shown in the research it wasn't that bad. So like it literally happens with everything. It's like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, and it's like 10 years later they're like, that wasn't that bad, this new thing is worse. And it's like, oh Jesus Christ, we're going in these cycles, nothing is bad. So the research on the eggs is like, if you eat eggs daily and you get your body fat down because you're controlling your weight with high quality nutrition with protein in, you'll be better off than you would do being obese and eating no eggs.
Okay.
So like there's things that are really important within like the order of magnitude. So if you wanted a 10x return, you're looking at like keeping your body fat low. If you want a 0.1x return, you'd monitor how many eggs that you would have across a week. Unless you're in shape, you've got your blood work checked, you work out, and then your cholesterol is high based on that, then you can make some changes there. Like I've had a client that has lost 35 kilos, has trained 5 days a week, runs a very, very, runs a company in DIFC, let's just say that, and busy working hours, cut down his drinking significantly, and yet still has high cholesterol, even though he's lost 35 kilos and cleaned up his life completely. Wow. Someone like that has just got high cholesterol genetically because he's took away all the excuses, took away all the factors. Now he has to take statins to navigate that. Mm-hmm. But most people, they jump to eggs or they jump to these things before changing the big rocks. Most people for type 2 diabetes, which I know is different to cholesterol, but the research is so clear. If you lose 10% of your body weight, if you get your bar to lose 10% of her body weight, so that could be 10 kilos, 9 kilos, 8 kilos, she'll put the type 2 diabetes into remission. Wow. It's like obesity or the level of fat that you have determines a lot of these health concerns. So that's when you think about order of magnitude. That's why I focus on fat loss so much.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's interesting. What about Indians who are turning from vegetarians to vegans? What do you want to say to that?
It's a tough one. If they want to stay eating like traditional Indian food, they almost limit they put like already a unique small category of protein and food sources that they can have, they almost then split it in half again. So like if you look at like the Jain community and the Swaminarayan community, they're in a smaller box of food choices and preferences.
That's true.
Now what tends to happen is that, luckily for us, that I know that I've worked with the Jain Swaminarayan community, I've dated within the Swaminarayan community for a long time, so I know the intricacies there, but most people don't know how to navigate that a lot, especially with personal trainers out here, and no one even knows what that is. Like, you can't have root veggies, you can't have you can't have that. When you reduce down the amount of servings of like sources that you can eat,
yeah,
but you also like flexibility, variety, you like food is the business to you, like you've got the Indian culture, like I need this, food is me.
Yeah.
It's quite a ticking time bomb, because you're like, I can only eat these 7 foods. That means I'm going to repeat these foods quite often. It means I'm going to get bored very often, and that means I'm going to more likely break on my diet to go and eat a pizza or whatever like that.
Okay, makes
So
sense.
normally what happens is these people who reduce down their servings to more vegan stuff, they either have to change their lifestyle completely or they end up reverting back because they can't stick to it long enough.
Yeah.
Because most people prefer flexibility, variety of choices, food being exciting. But like imagine if you just, I dated a vegan for a while, and like her 4 or 5 protein sources that she had every single day was protein powder, Linda McCartney sausages, tofu, and one of the other mock meats.
So you're like, get off my house.
I'm like I used to steal them because they're easy to make in the air fryer. But I'm like, she wouldn't mind eating the same foods every day because she was like a bodybuilder. So she had the lifestyle, the mindset where I'm eating this for a function, not for taste. Okay. So she would eat Linda McCartney sausages like they're going out of fashion. But the problem is that most people who have not exposed to that, maybe they've come from like a veggie Indian background where variety is king, they can have what they want, loads of different dinner every single night, and now they're putting themselves in a box from a vegan perspective of need to eat this, this and this. It's really difficult, and most people who end up making that choice between veggie and vegan don't really make it for the right reasons to some degree. So there was obviously a trend where people went vegan to help their fat loss, but not because of the real reasons why most people would go vegan. So they end up going vegan and then turning back because it doesn't help with the fat loss because they end up cheating on the diet a lot more. So when you go like vegan, carnivore, the more, I guess, let's say outside of the normal life, 3 meals and normal food, the further you go outside, the more you're going to have to really adopt that lifestyle, or you're going to be back in a year or 2 or 3 years. I've seen it, like being in the industry now for 12, these trends, you see people do it for 3 and even 4, and it looks like they're all in, but then they'll swing back at some point.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that's totally cool. But it's almost like, they have to go all in or nothing.
Makes sense. And that's interesting to know. What about the people who are into carnivorous diet? Like, let's say also Punjabis who are like mixed, they love all of that as well. Like the chicken, the mutton and everything. What about that versus a vegetarian diet? What's good?
It's a good question, actually.
Yeah.
It's a really good question. So let's say the goal is to get in better shape. So like for different autoimmune diseases might have a beneficial for either one. But let's say the mutual goal that we're both trying to do, we got 2 Punjabi guys trying to get in shape, right? You got a veggie and then you got the mutton guy. The one who sticks to the right amount of calories will win the game. But the one with the mutton has a easier chance of building muscle tissue and maintaining their muscle tissue throughout the diet, because it's easier to get protein from mutton and chicken and eggs and stuff like that. But the difference, if you're looking at overall shape, getting the fat off, both would equally perform as well, because it's all about caloric intake, whether it's vegan, veggie, Swarm and Jain, meat eating. But this person over here would probably easily eat more protein, which would maintain their muscle tissue.
Very important question. A girl would call sexy to which guy? This guy or the guy?
Yeah, dad bod and over that. Yeah, that's it. I think.
Which would be the one in the girls?
Over years, I used to think I was going to the gym to impress girls, and all you do is impress guys. So that's literally it. I don't know. It's a very good question. I think most girls like someone that takes care of themselves. I think that's the key construct of whichever life. Like, obviously it's happy to have money and status, but if a guy dresses well, they got the hair groomed, they've done the beard, and they present themselves well, and they're in good shape, I think that's like...
It's not about the 6 packs only anymore.
Yeah, no. It's 6-pack plus Gucci bag, a Rolls Royce, no. But plus how you present yourself.
Yeah, how you carry yourself, basically.
Get a good pair of chinos and a polo, you're sorted.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, what's one thing that you would pick from Indians and one thing that you would deny from Indians?
Oh, well, like, what would I pick from the Indian community that I've took like into my own life as well? I think what I learned from the Indian community and the South Asian community in general is standards. So, like, obviously there's social expectations in different areas of life, whether it's the weddings, it's who you're inviting, who you're marrying, what job you're getting. I don't agree 100% with all that stuff, but I do agree with like setting standards for the family. I really enjoyed that. Like, whether like there's a comedian called Akash Singh, and he will go onto stage and predict what job the person has based on their second name, because he's like an India guy's like, he's a Patel, he's like, okay, you own motels or grocery stores or whatever it is, and they're like, yeah, these guys, because he's good to you or whatever. I like the standard where people expect a lot from themselves or the kids, or like there's a community of hard work and studying, whereas in the UK my mum was just like, do what makes you happy. But I was like, that's cool, and we got here and that's great, but if we're looking at like, if we ran this life 10 times out of 10, I'd live this 1 out of 10. The other 9, I'd be PlayStation 5, Hopefully that becomes a profitable job in the future. But I would like the standards, so that's what I would keep, and that's what I've learned a lot in my own life, and even in my team, we keep the standards very similar. But then what would I take away? I probably wouldn't take anything away. I would just reduce the importance of the force, like the additional force feeding of the second plates and the stuff like that. Like, because when we break it down psychologically as well, let's say for example I've sat at dinner tables and I asked the mum, the auntie, because I'm just curious, like why would you why would you ask that she have a second plate when she's clearly said that she wanted the second one? And obviously I didn't go see them again, they weren't really happy with me, but like they would just be like, well, I want them to eat more. And it's like, okay, well, that in my brain, because I was like completely, I came out of the industry. I'm like, white guy coming in, I'm like, you want her to eat more, so now she has to eat more because you want her to eat more. And I'm like, hang on, what about what she wants? And she's like, I don't care what she wants. I want her to eat more because she's looking too skinny. I'm like, oh, this is okay. So it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense. So like, so then that I would take that away, because there's some really good research, and it's rubbish research, but like within the community, they studied guilt and shame. So they studied like, how do the grandparents and the mothers and all that, the generational stuff, exhibit control over like especially when they move to as a Desi over to a different country. How do they keep status? And a lot of it's through guilt and shame. So whether it was have that second plate because your family in India don't have the same opportunities as you, or whatever the sentence was after, I don't like that. And maybe that's the thing I would get rid of. But sometimes it makes you stronger, sometimes a little bit of push in the right direction. But I think a lot of females specifically have eating disorders, have body image issues, have problems with even their own self-efficacy of making decisions. I've got loads of clients that like, when they move out from underneath their mum, they are a completely different person. And you can see how, like, because when I dated in the community, this woman in the community, bless her, Priyanka, I was like, so what are we doing today? She's like, oh, my mum wants me to go to this, my mum wants to do that. And I'm like, okay, but what about like what we want to do? Shall we do this together? And then we'd make some plans. It'd be like, oh, my mum wants to do that, and and it'd be like, I understand the whole concept, but a lot of it was coming from, she didn't have her own voice. And I guess the autonomy side of me goes, you are a 32-year-old woman. And there's women that are in my mind that are like 25 kilos down that I still work with today, that are like 25 kilos down, and that 25 kilos has allowed them to see the hypocrisy a little bit. And they're like, hey mum, I'm separating myself a bit from you because you've asked me to go to the post office at 4 p.m. on the afternoon when I work a full-time job, and whatever this is. So they find their own voice, and I think that's the thing I would take away. It's like the checking of just being like, getting people to do what you want them to do, without a care for what they want to do as well.
Wow, that's so powerful, that you are not just making people in the best version of themselves in physical form, but also in mental form, where you can help them achieve their own voice. That's super amazing.
The physical, one of my old bosses, the guy who got me into this, the Gujarati guy's name's Akash, he had this little statement which was, the physical is the vehicle. And whilst we don't get on anymore, but that stayed with me for a long time, where it's like, most people who need a bit of structure, need a bit of a kick up the bum, need to have their own drive, if they start with their own body, which is something that they're completely in control of, whether you walk or not is your choice. So for someone who hasn't been able to walk for 20 years because I've had a knee injury and a knee replacement 3 years ago, I didn't have the choice of whether I could walk or not. It was taken away. Whereas we have our bodies for most of the case. Yes, we have some ailments. Yeah, we got a dodgy shoulder or whatever, but we can do this with our forks or our hands, or we choose not to do these with our hands and fork, and then we can walk with our legs, and we have the ability to change our body, which changes our mind, it changes our routine, it changes the direction. When people lose 10, 15 kilos, the way that they act changes, the way that they can operate changes, the way that they dress changes. And if that is the vehicle that gets you out of a situation, whether it's that one that I just explained, whether it's the guilt and shame as a family member, or it's just taking life from a survivor of like life to a thriver of life, that's a pretty decent change. So the physical, because a lot of people start with the mental, oh, I'll just work on my discipline by thinking it away. You can't think anything away. Like I've done therapy for 7 years, and like with the therapy plus action plus training plus writing in my journal plus the action parts, that's what creates mental change. And physical, and then the physical change goes alongside that. Yeah. But the physical starts all of it. So
as an Indian, I really love eating by hands.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is it good or not?
I mean, it tastes the same to me, but like no, I in the Ayurvedic like text and script, like spoken to an Ayurvedic recently. Actually, we did Dubai Live together, which was the TV Dubai One, the TV program, and she was saying that people tend to eat slower with their hands, a little bit more. There's a little bit more of a grounding nature to it.
Exactly.
And with that type of stuff, I normally stay away from the conversation of Ayurveda because I think I'm a research logical guy, whereas there are some tech like chewing very slowly is part of the text. I'm like, okay, we'll keep that, but there's some of it where I'm like, I just don't know enough about it to make my logical claim to it. But I think if anything can slow you down to eating, that's always a positive.
Especially in India.
Yeah. Because like if you're like this, you know, this fat loss craze at the moment, you know, the Ozempic, Manjaro and the kind of injections that people reduce their appetite, that works on something called GLP-1, right? Okay. But you can naturally produce that, not at the same rate that you can when you inject it, but you secrete that when you chew slowly. So you get fuller by chewing slowly. Wow. So let everybody, and I've got these clients that take the injections but still eat really fast. And I'm like, when you come off those injections, you haven't learned the lesson of it helping your appetite. So most people can eat half the calories that they eat right now, and if they just ate it slowly, they would feel as full as they would do eating double the amount.
Oh wow!
So I'm obsessed with watching food videos on YouTube. Okay. So the food challenge videos, right? So you watch this guy with the big beard, British guy, right? He will eat the most in the first 10 minutes of a challenge. Why? Because in the first 10 minutes, you haven't activated GLP-1. Because GLP-1 is the thing that will say that, hey, I'm full, I've just had 17 burgers and 16 chicken breasts, whatever, and it'll go, you're full. So it'll make it harder for you to keep eating because you're so full. So professional eaters eat as fast as they can in the first 10 minutes to get as much in without it recognizing fullness. Whereas if you're eating on a limited amount of food, you need to do the opposite of what he's trying to do. Because he's getting as much in as possible in the shortest time as possible. You're supposed to eat the least that you can over the longest time so that you're full. So when you try and do the opposite, when most people eat like professional eaters, but don't have the same amount of food as a professional eater, that's when you then end up being hungry an hour later, 30 minutes, blood sugar crashes after an hour, all those things. So eating slowly, whether that's with hands or with your fork and knife, anything to do that is a very good habit long term.
Amazing. Also, I have learned a very nice thing, that is eating things in the right order. I think this is very interesting as well. Like first I need to get on my veggies, then on my proteins, and then on my carbs. Yeah. Is that correct?
So, I mean, the people that take that little too far, like I'm bang in the middle. So you look at people that are polarizing. I may be polarizing because what I say and what my skin color is in the industry that I work in, but people will go, that's really important. I'll just say, logically, it makes sense. If you eat the good stuff first, it probably leaves less room for the bad stuff. So like when you're working with kids, the first thing is to get them to eat the veggies, and then there's less room at the end for the cake or the chips.
Makes sense.
Whereas if I start with the chips, it's psychologically, I've ate the most nicest thing on the plate. The meal only goes downhill from now. Whereas if I start with my veggies, the meal only goes uphill. I get my potatoes next, I get my rice, get my roti, we get my chicken, whatever it is. So psychologically, a meal can feel different by the order that you eat it in. I'm not sure whether the entire digestive stuff is true or false, but I look at it from a psychological perspective where if I was eating veggies first, I definitely would feel fuller first. I would look forward to the better stuff that tastes a little bit better, because not this green crap that we have to eat. And then it just makes a more positive experience. Whereas normally the greens are left till last, you have to force yourself to eat it, which is sometimes never happens.
Nice. That's great. So I'm a Gujarati and Marwadi mix. Do you know who Marwadi is?
No, I don't actually.
Okay, so these are the ones from Rajasthan.
Okay.
So do you know something called as dal bati?
Yes.
Okay, so that's my dish.
Okay.
So it's a mix between Gujarati and Marwadi. So I have like various amounts of dishes. What I love most is dal bati is full of protein. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned is about the ghee that is topped upon that like this.
Yeah, just turned upside down on top.
Yeah. But I think, is it okay or not? Because like my grandmom is feeding me after so long and she sees me so thin and she's like, what happened to you? And then she's like putting out so much, which is also good protein. So is it okay? Like at one point of time, so much of ghee?
So it's dependent on how frequent and how often. So ghee, in my opinion, like you've got the toss up between the age-old conversation that will go: is ghee good or bad? Is ghee better than olive oil or oils, or is it as good as butter or any of those variations? So on the outside looking in, when you look at these variations, they're mostly the same calories per gram. Ghee is very similar to oil, that's similar to butter in terms of calories. So if you have 5 grams of each, they're all the same. Now if it's the easiest thing to go higher on your calories on is the ghee, because for 1 gram of fat, like ghee, it's 9 calories. So, but most people do an average serving of ghee is like 25-30 grams, and that's being very polite. So therefore, you're always going to have 200 to 300 calories. And then if you look in the aspect of your percentages of your daily intake, that might be 10 to 15% of your total intake potentially on one day, not including whatever else is in that meal that's been made, second serving, third servings. So you really do waste a lot of calories in the oil itself. It has some really good benefits, but most people won't see the benefits unless they are in shape, because obesity is like an anchor, or fat is like an anchor. So you end up feeling the negatives before you feel the positives, of something like the subtle differences between ghee and oil. So is it great as a one-off? Sure, enjoy it. But as soon as you go away from that, I wouldn't be adding a ghee on everything if you're trying to stay calorie controlled. I think like there's two things when you look at like stuff like this. You've got nostalgia-based food, which is grandmum, she has the little moan about how skinny you are, and then you just ignore it. And you have those moments. The same as the way that you have different styles of weddings. You've got the weddings which is with your close circle, then you've got the one that you got invited to because you're a 19th cousin on the left side, and then you've got the third one which is like your mum's forcing you to go to your aunties, uncles, someone at the church, like the temples, whatever. And each one of those, you don't use the same nutrition strategy, because they have different orders of importance. So your grandma's food will be high top importance, and then whether you eat breakfast at a hotel 3 days later is low importance. So you can use that meal as a high importance. You can prioritize it in that week. That meal, I'm going to enjoy it with my grandma. We're going to have nostalgia. I'm going to have a good portion. I'm going to have a good serving size. I'm going to not worry about it too much. I'm going to not be an idiot and have 17 servings and make my belly hurt, but I'm going to have a great thing. And then the rest of the week, I'm going to do some calculations to navigate it. So, and then you can cut back on the breakfast that you're going to have at a hotel or something like that. So yeah, I like when it's one-off, or when you're going there for a short period of time, like most people go back to India maybe once a year, twice a year. They're the times that you should be having nostalgia-based, experience-based food. It's not. It's the other 6 months in between that you have a Domino's pizza on a Friday. There's nothing nostalgic about a Domino's. Well, maybe to some people, but they're the ones that you want to do all your work in those 5.5 months. To then when you go away, gain a few pounds. Go and do it. Over the year, you'll be back down again in no time.
I mean, for me, I think it was a very crazy experience when last time I had a McDonald's burger. I went straight up. It was like 4 years ago. And then I went inside and I was like, I want the biggest one with full of cheese, full of paneer and all of this. And then I had it and I was like, this time I'm going to eat slowly. I ate slowly, and like after 2-3 bites, I'm like, I don't want this. But I still ate it. And then from that day, I just decided not to eat it anymore. And I'm really good. Like, I think that made a real difference with all of this. And especially having these kind of friends also who go to eat Domino's, and I think I rarely avoid. Once in 3 months.
When you have those experiences, like there's food that I've had experience with now that I just like, it turns me off from having it again. I'm just like, that was nice. It was a period of my life when I had that all of the time, but few and far between. Like, you catch me after 19 drinks on holiday sometime, I might get a McDonald's at the airport, but outside of that, there's, very few and far between.
What about fasting? So for me, I fast like every day 16 hours.
Yeah.
How much do you?
I only fast when I sleep. So like,
Okay.
I don't fast just because I like frequent food servings across the day. Helps me get my protein in, the amount of calories I need in, equally across the day. So most people fast because of either religious or the concept of productivity, like a longevity as well. So if you don't think about food, you can just get on with work and just move forwards with it. It's all a lifestyle again. Like, is there benefits to fasting? For sure. But there's also benefits to eating frequently across the day. It just depends on which benefits that you want to have. Because the autophagy that you get from fasting, you get from a calorie deficit, even if you eat 4 times a day. The same autophagy.
Okay.
Yeah, so like, and that's one of the things where I say this over someone else says about fasting. But when you look at the research, like clinically trial blind studied, which is the good stuff, autophagy happens when you're in a deficit and happens when you're in fasting. So the same process happened.
But when do you think they're in deficit?
So because let's say for example, when you're in a caloric deficit, so let's say for example, my maintenance is 2,500 calories. In a whole day, I eat 1,600, but in between those meals, when I'm having like 500, 400, 600, 300, and when I'm sleeping, that's the period of time where I'll be in autophagy. I'll be pulling it through. So like, you don't need to be completely fasted to have those benefits.
That's interesting.
So that and then for us, I just see the negative bounce back long term of people that fast, because they do it for a period of time and then they just don't know how to control themselves around food. Again, why you get into fasting dictates if you stay in fasting. So most people like fasting because it means they can have their, especially Indian guys, they love their big meal in the evening. So they get home and they want to have 2 plates, big portion. So they'll go, oh, well then if I don't eat all day, then I can still have the thing that I want to have. And it's that change mentality, because that big meal there is what's making you fat. That's why, that's the issue. That's the thousands of calories that you're having there, but you don't want to change that. So you'll change all the rest of your day around it, justify it as a fasting diet, see all the benefits about it, just so that you can have that big meal in the evening and not change the hardest part of habit change, which is saying no to yourself and having something that's smaller. So I just see it a lot where people use a dieting method to justify not changing their habits. And I'll call that out straight away, because I feel like most people need to be in control of their eating, whether that's, when someone says I can't have biscuits in the house because I'll eat them all, that's a red flag. And I've got to help them be able to have biscuits in the house. That's not normal. A biscuit is not a human being. It's not someone in like Kenya with a knife trying to steal you from your house. You know what I mean? That's not like, they're not forcing you to be there. It's a biscuit, and to a biscuit to have a power over you so much that you fear having them in the house.
Makes sense.
That's tough.
That's tough.
And all of these small habits, whether it's not being able to feel satisfied after 1 plate of food, having biscuits in the house, not being able to have ones of things, not being able to take a bite of something, or not being able to throw away food, all of these things, which is a massive one, which I have fight over aunties with. But like, you have to be able to do all these things to be in control. Otherwise, food is ruling you as opposed to you ruling it, because it's not a human being. It's not controlling. It's not a robber. It's not someone with a knife.
Yeah.
So
makes sense. Yeah. What about biggest lesson that you want to give for the youths of South Asian community in 21st century?
Okay, perfect. Train as much as you can, build as much muscle as you can, even until like you're like 35. That's women, guys, kids. The ability to have muscle tissue is not about what it looks like physically, whether I have a lot of muscle or don't have enough muscle to compare to what you think. But that stuff is going away once you get into your 50s and 60s. And your quality of life is determined based on your ability to move, be injury-free, be strong. But if, I said to the team today, I was like, we've got some people who don't want to go to the gym, they don't want to build muscle tissue, they think it's like a manly thing to build muscle tissue. What they don't realize is that when that goes away, and you've only got 30 kilos of lean mass, for example, when you're a 60 kilo woman, that's going to go to 25, then 20, and then you're going to struggle with bending your knees, squatting, any body weight exercises, because you don't have any muscle to support your frame, which means that you become frail, weak, and then your quality of life becomes less. And what you don't want is your quality of life to go less once you get into your 50s and 60s and 70s. So you have to build to maintain as much as you can on that downward trend, especially when you get into when women get into menopause. So if you can build as much muscle now, you have a better quality of life later. And the lessons of building muscle tissue for guys will help you get more girls. It'll help you be more resilient. It'll help you be more disciplined. It'll help you be better from a nutrition perspective, mentally focused. The things that are in protein or building blocks of protein help with cognitive function, not just building muscle. So you're going to be at a better advantage if you prioritize building muscle tissue. And actually the process of building is a patient game. So you have to, go to the gym, you have to work your ass off and see nothing. And I think if you look at like maybe my last 10 years, 12 years of like my career, they didn't come where I did something and got the return straight away. Most people, the longer they waited for the return, the bigger the payoff was. So 100 episodes of a podcast, and then or 300 episodes. Chris Williamson, I think 300 episodes of his podcast or 400 episodes. That's when he then went mega, and that's like 300 of 20,000 listening, 30,000 listening, which is still massive. But for his numbers, he then went into the millions straight after that. So you have to be willing to wait a while to see the fruits of your labor. And like muscle, again, the physical is the vehicle. So building muscle will teach you that for everybody.
It's interesting. That's super great. And what do you think about India in general and traveling to India and having local food on the streets?
My digestive system does not like it, that's for sure. But I love it. Like we did a pani puri challenge there. We did food at like lovely places. I forgot the names of restaurants, but like we ate at the hotel that we were at, and then we ate at like a street vendor. Street food is always incredible, but it's just my stomach isn't ready for it. So
okay, that's great. And what about Dubai? How many people have you built with community over this time, and training these South Asians? And is it particularly South Asians only, or it's?
No, it's literally only South Asians. So like we're only really coming into Dubai this year. Like prior to that, a lot of our client is US and UK based. But now we have a team over here. I've got 5 coaches that come to my house every week to work from. We're really growing in this in Dubai now, with obviously like the amount of people expatting from India to Dubai is crazy last year. And like they're like the elite people that kind of live the lifestyle that kind of we all live in Dubai, and have that experience, have that the investment to do so. It's going to be exciting to have a community over here. I know there are a large community over here. I'm speaking to people like Indian women in Dubai. Like they've got a massive community, thousands of people. Speaking to Rima today actually, just so that we can help other people, not to communities. Obviously, there's a lot of them that have been here for 20 years, 30 years, and they're just like, you just don't see them. You don't see any access to them. Dubai is one of those places where there's lots of communities, but you just don't see it. Exactly. And then once you get access once, or like you see everyone opens up, then you're everywhere then. So yeah, we're really looking forward to and the food scene is always increasing out here. It's got some incredible like hashmis. Have you done hashmis? Hashmi.
What's that?
Oh, there you go. You're gonna love this. So it's a restaurant here. It looks very rubbish. Like looks like on the outside looking, it's like proper trash. But they're the best places. So it's a restaurant from Nairobi. So obviously, like I said, Nairobi's like my second home. So there's a restaurant called Hashmi's, and they brought it over to Dubai, and like they do the best like tikka paneer. They do the best like naan, peshwari.
We gotta go for that.
Yeah. That food. So Hashmi's is the best food I've experienced, especially the one in Kenya. It's very like people that go there are like literally it's packed every single night. And it's like, it's beautiful. So that's the best place the food over here is incredible.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. That's great. Nice, amazing. That's great. And what are some tips for the young teenagers currently who are living in Dubai, or let's say any part of the world, South Asians?
So if you're living at home, I think the easiest thing to do is start slowly integrating some more, I guess, depends on how your family operate. If your family are like they're willing to kind of allow you to maneuver like my family were. They were like, hey, if you want to have a bit more of this, a little bit more of that, that's totally cool. Then you start having a bit more protein, take interest in the gym, start looking at how you can have more protein-rich meals. But most importantly, it will kind of be governed by your parents. But if you've got some control, try and take that control. And then until you're 21, stay away from as much of the diet culture as possible if you don't have to. Like, the most problem with the South Asian community in this like 16 to 24 range now is they started dieting at 14, 15, 16, and not good diets as well. So they got that first comment, the cheeks are chubby at the wedding, whatever it is, and then next minute they're trying to cut back on food. So the longer you can leave messing around with food, the better it will be if you don't have to. So obviously you can make some subtle changes like more protein, but they're more habitual basis. But full-scale dieting, if someone said to me, and I had a child, let's say for example, I had an 18-year-old child or 16-year-old child, and it was like, would you let them go on a diet? And I had the choice if I could, I'd be like, no. What I would have done as a parent from 0 to 16 would have been enough to instill good habits.
Exactly.
So like I have to take the ownership on that. Then other parents, will have to take that ownership of maybe not doing that. But at a 16-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, they shouldn't be going on diets. And I get the message all the time, can you help my daughter? She's 14. I'm like, stop feeding her your food. That's probably what, please do that, Yes. So for the younger generation, focus on habits and training and exercise. And then as you get into a more of a adolescence.
Amazing.
Yeah.
If you know about South Indian food, it's a lot of steam-based food.
Yeah.
What do you think about like the idli, the dosa, the sambar? I think it's very nutritious, right?
Yeah, I have Saturday morning is dosa sambar day. So like that's Bharti makes me every, like she said I was sad on Saturday. I wasn't, I was just tired. And she's like, then she made full on dosa sambar. So that's my favorite like breakfast option. Like not nutritionally, but from a feeling perspective. Yeah, so that type of stuff is awesome. Like obviously the batter or the lentil rice with the idli, they're all good quality ingredients. That's the thing with the dosas, the sambars. Pack your sambar full of veggies and dal, whatever you want to put in the middle of it, with the tamarind sauce, a little bit of that, and a bit of chili. It's great. Like they're all really good. It's just the dosages that you have them. It really is, like, because it's so easy to whip up like the difference between like an aloo dosa and then or a plain dosa. Like the difference is aloo is double the calories versus the plain one. And then some people make, especially when you get it from order out, especially here, the plain ones become this big. They come in the delivery boxes and they're this big long, whereas when Bharti makes them, they're this big.
Yeah.
So it's all about the portion size of that food. The quality ingredients are amazing. They probably could do with some more protein, so doubling up on extra bits. So like when I have dosa sambar, I'll have a protein shake on the side because I don't need to have more dal. I don't want to have any extra bits of yogurt, for example. I'll just have a shake of 30 grams.
But what about the dal or sambar? It has a lot of protein, so I don't think you need extra protein apart from that.
No, because remember we said before that to be able to build muscle tissue, you need a certain amount of protein.
So that dal doesn't
You're never going to get it. So you need to eat, you'll have to fact check me because I said this on a reel the other day. If you wanted to get your protein, so 168 grams, I would have to eat 2.4 kilos of dal a day. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is there's a difference between having protein in and having enough protein in. So having protein in is a benefit. That's awesome. And that's what, like, that'll get you to stage number 1. Like you pass go. You got on your Monopoly board, you've got to stage number 2. But having enough protein is looking at specific grammage. So if we say I need to get 168, let's make it easy. I just need to get 30 grams a meal. To get 30 grams of dal, 30 grams of protein from dal, it's like, well, let's say for example, a 60 gram serving of raw weight dal, lentil chana, it's around about 7 grams of protein. So we're having 6, 12, 18. So you're having 240 grams of raw dal. That's like cooked 3 times a month. It's nearly a kilo of dal to get 30 grams of protein.
No way.
So you won't get that in sambar.
No.
You'll be your digestive system and your fart would stink. So like so you wouldn't be able to get, and that's really good because I think that moment there is like the difference. That's the not the culture, but that is the social norm at the moment. What you express there is what is the difference between someone looking great and someone doing okay.
Exactly.
Not saying you're not looking okay, great, but like that's the difference. Like if I have dosa sambar, I won't get enough protein, so I have to make that adjustment. Whereas some people will look at dosa and sambar and look at the ingredient of dal and say, oh, that's protein, so I'm good. And one of the biggest things within the community, actually, off a tangent of that, is people look at ingredients to say good or bad. I think it's a toxic trait of the community. Is that they'll say idli, good, bad, dosa, good, bad,
Exactly.
samosa, good, bad,
Exactly.
rice, good, bad. But the answer is not good, bad. It's how much.
How much?
And so that's a toxic trait of I guess the older generation as well, because they'll come to me and say, subzi, can I have subzi? Yes or no? And it's like, how much subzi do you want? Like, do you want to have a mountain of subzi, or do you want to have a quarter of a plate of subzi? What does it come with? The nuance is the context. And I think when you devil, because food is emotional to most people, they like black or white.
Yeah.
Because it cuts out the emotion. Whereas when you take the emotion away, there's a saying which is like, if you devil in the detail, the emotion goes away. So if you get specific and accurate, then that's when the excitement goes away, and that's when people love food for the excitement. So they don't want to get too specific with it. But if you can, the accuracy is really important. Anyway, so there's a tangent, but yeah. Dosa sambar is incredible. It's my favorite, but I have a protein shake on the side with it.
Next time I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, do it. And then if you're in like a calorie deficit, or like if you want to plan it into your days, most people do have it on a frequent occasion. So they will do. So let's say if someone said to me, Nathan, I want dosa sambar every day, and I'm like, okay, fine. Okay, so one dosa, a bowl of sambar without loads of oil, roughly 300 calories. Two dosa, we'll talk dosa. Two dosa sambar, 500 calories. So the other meals in the day, I would just pack full of protein, really specific protein, if that was the meal they wanted to have as their traditional meal.
Okay.
If they didn't want the evening meal with their family, the chanas, the rajmas, whatever it was, we can pack that morning full of sambar dosa, but the rest of the meals have to be on my accord, a little bit more tailored, a little bit more like, hey, this amount of grams of paneer, this amount of yogurt, this amount of tofu, this amount of protein shake before bed, for example, yogurt, 0% Greek fat, Greek yogurt. So you can have that traditional meal, but the rest of the day has to be packed full of the right protein.
As an Indian, I really love yogurt.
Yeah.
But I have got various norms that I shouldn't be eating before sleeping or in the evening. Is it true or not?
Just depends on how lactose intolerant you are. If you're not, like if it sits well or it doesn't sit well. Like normally it's the dosages and what you have it with. So like if you just have yogurt on its own, most people don't digest chili or yogurt very well, which is really funny because it's like that's half the makeup of the food. Like I know a lot of Indians that their digestive system hate chili and hot spice, but they love spice. So then they just do spice anyway, even though it's killing their insides, and they have to take Gaviscon twice a day, but they won't eat a meal without the chili and the heat. So therefore they're in this spin cycle. But if you, so funny, but the way that you can test it is like, if you have a spoonful of yogurt and you sleep and nothing happens, 2 spoons, 3 spoons, 5 spoons, you get to a point where you have 200 grams and you're like, okay, cool, 200 grams was fine. But only if you wake up and your stomach's in pain.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like everyone's different. Like I can eat so much just before bed and I will sleep like a baby. I can eat 20 minutes before I do a workout as well. I don't know why, but my friend Abood, one of my coaches, he has to eat 2 hours before a workout, otherwise he feels nauseous and sick. So everyone is completely different, how fast they digest food, how they react to things like dairy. Dairy, caffeine and spice are normally like the 3 things that separate people's variation. And if you can get accustomed to how much caffeine you can tolerate at what times in the day, not to stop your sleep, or how much spice you can handle, or your digestive system can handle, and how much like dairy you can handle.
Ah, interesting. And why do you think a lot of people are getting lactose intolerant these days?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually don't know. I think normally people get intolerant with things either genetically or predispositionally. But I know a lot of people that have just over-consumed the same foods over and over and over and over again, to the point where it becomes like a immune issue. It becomes a response, a rebuke of like having the same thing over and over again. So some of my friends can't eat chicken because they did 10 years on a bodybuilding diet of chicken, and they can't do whatever else, the same things. Yogurt's another one. So I think it's the more you have something, and depends on the dosages and how sensitive it is, normally means that there's some type of
Any other thing that you would like to address for anyone, the South Asian community?
No, I avoid trying to call it out, but obviously if I get asked questions, I always kind of speak openly about my experiences.
Makes sense.
I think there's from like a Desi perspective, there is a large progress, especially within Dubai and US, in terms of like the real reason of how to make change, which I think is really awesome. I think within the community, I just wish there was a lot more speaking about like menopause. I think that is, there's certain subjects that you don't really mention at dinner tables, or aunties don't mention, or mums don't mention, because they might not got that kind of support too. And I think it comes to just the lack of support, really, or lack of open conversation. You know how like therapy was like a taboo subject 10 years ago. Now everyone's talking about it. I think it's the same as like menopause and PCOS and maybe infertility within the community, or like body image issues. They're all like kind of trickling down to normal now, where people can speak about it. So I think I'm just finding that a lot of people are entering there. You know, I think it's I pulled up the research 2 days ago. I think it's 2 in 10 women from the South Asian community, and this was done in India, which are technically kind of sometimes more healthier than the people that are in the Desi community, which is that's a topic. I'll come back to that. It's like 2 out of 10 women between the age of 30 and 39 who are Indian in India are in perimenopause. 30 to 39. Ooh. You wouldn't think that. Like that's, I'm 33. Yeah, I could be in menopause. But like, that's an alarming rate, because that's early, right? And if you look at then the rates of like girl bosses who want to kind of go into their 30s and focus on the career, if you had 10 women that focused on their career, 2 of them could have been in menopause by now. That means they're obviously, the chance of fertility goes down, their bone density goes down, their health risks, their hormones change forever. So there's a large thing that's changing, and people need to know this information too, so that when they get into their 30s and they have all of these like kind of symptoms, potentially they don't just pass it off as like, oh, I'm just tired, or I'm just sick, or maybe I just need a day off, and then they actually can get the testing correct for it. Because I swear I probably had lots of clients that I look back on now with that data and going, oh, that person, they should have got tested for that, or that person should have got tested. I'm like, damn, how did I miss that? You know, so. Yeah. So yeah, I think that would probably be the biggest, not misconceptions, but the things that go underneath the radar is that.
Okay. And what about caffeine? Do you consume caffeine?
Yeah.
Okay. I've started to consume lion's mane, if you know. I think it is really big shift, and which is great. I think it is working. MCT oil, ashwagandha, it gives you immense focus. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. Yeah,
I love those, the mushroom complexes, they're what we call adaptogens. You know, for anyone that's listening, adaptogen is basically it's a supplement that adapts to the current state that your system is in. So if you're in a super high state, like a mentally charged state, it'll bring you down to baseline. If you're in a really low state, it'll bring you up. That's why it adapts to whatever's been presented in your body biochemically. I like them. I just also like the feeling of caffeine. I love it. You know, I have ADHD, so caffeine plus my ADHD meds is like my version of that. I just go, leave me alone for 4 hours and I'm in a rocket. Wow. So yeah, I think like the recommended dosages, just so everyone knows, is like you can consume it to 2,000 milligrams a day, which is far beyond what you could get from Starbucks 7 times over. Oh, wow. An average espresso is like 70 milligrams, so you could have a lot of those to have 2,000. Now, the problem is that sleep gets compromised. So what I do is I do as much caffeine as I want between the hours of like 6 and 12, and then just cut off after that. Best. And then because the half-life of caffeine is 12 hours, so if you had it at 12, it's still going to be in your system at 12 the night, not on the night. So therefore, you're not going to sleep as quality or depthly as you want to. Okay. So. That's great. That's amazing. Thank you so much for your knowledge, for your wisdom, and opening up really and talking your heart out. It has and will help millions and billions of people. Thank you. Really appreciate for changing people's life, people's mental health, and much more. So thank you so much again. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.